Dindori to Maharajpur. The Narmada is a mountain river, but she begins her journey in a plain. The long downhill climb from Amarkantak is but half a day's journey for her, before she enters a 74-kilometer long stretch of plains to Dindori. It is as if the Narmada has no concern with the hills, like a naughty child assuming an aspect of innocence for a while. Beyond Dindori, a maze of mountains begins. Innumerable hills, large and small, block the Narmada's way, making her twist and turn as she negotiates a path through them. That is why there is so much wriggling and riding between Dindori and Mandla, found nowhere else except at Sulpani Jhari. The route from Dindori to Mandla is extremely difficult, but equally beautiful. It is as though the Narmada's childhood ends here, and her adolescence begins. We left Dindori on 8 October 1979, spending the night in Banjara Tola and the next night in Rampuri. The farmers there were haunted by the black shadow of famine. They said, there's a proverb, little grain needs little rain. But this year we didn't get even a little rain. God knows what will happen to us. Going on, we met a horseman on the road. He was most interested to hear about our journey. I have to go to my fields, sir, he said. But you can see my house over there. Please go there. You will find my son ready to provide you with everything you need. The son gave us a hearty welcome. He quickly offered us a tray laden with flour, rice, lentils, ghee, salt, onions, and red chilies. We really don't need so much, we protested, but he absolutely insisted. He even came along with us to show us the way forward. We were traversing a high plateau, expecting to meet the Narmada in some incomparable curving shape. As she flows along, the Narmada strikes against a mountain and recoils with resilient grace, flowing back parallel to herself. The horseman's son commented, "When the river is in flood, the land between the parallel streams can barely be seen." There was a hermit's hut at the confluence of the Kharmar and the Narmada. He was about to set out on the parikrama of the Narmada that very day, having entrusted his hut to a fellow hermit. He was going by a direct route and we by way of Deonala, so we would not be able to go together. The horseman's son went back from here, but a villager agreed to guide us to Deonala. We crossed the beautiful winding Kharmar thrice on the way to Deonala. The stream we had been following thus far becomes a waterfall a little ahead. There is a huge cave behind the waterfall. We had heard a lot about the cave and so went straightway to see it. It is an extraordinary sight. The cave is so huge that thousands of people could easily gather inside. I doubt there is another such cave behind a waterfall anywhere else in our country. Night had come. Our guide took us to a holy man's hut and then returned to his village. He walked home with the greatest ease in pitch darkness. For fear of wild animals, Yadavendra and I slept inside the hut. In the morning we bathed there. The stream joins the Kharmer. The Kharmer joins the Narmada. So we reckoned it was the equivalent of bathing in the Narmada. We reached Marwari Ghat at noon, where two brothers were making bread rolls at the riverside. They collected ghee from nearby villages and sold it in the city for a living. We inquired of them about the way from there. They told us the way and gave us bread rolls and plenty of ghee. They refused to take money from us. In the evening, we arrived at Kanai Sangam. We stayed in a small deserted temple on the river bank that night. Malpur was visible opposite. On the way upriver, we had stayed at Mr. Gosai's house in the village. We arranged for a message to be sent to him, then got on with cooking dinner. It was very dark. A flickering light appeared in the river. The light came nearer and nearer. We thought it might be Mr. Gosai. It was his brother. Mr. Gosai was away from home, so his brother had come to see us. The strong current makes it dangerous to cross the river even in daylight. He had come in the stillness of the night. He returned after inquiring about our well-being. We watched in terror as he made his way across the quivering, wavering Narmada in the darkness. The way forward got more challenging as the days passed. We struggled across hills and dry riverbeds. A villager gave us company from Sakri Ghat onwards. As we went along, we could see the Narmada in a lovely curve from a high cliff. It was a spellbinding sight. The high, rocky riverbank, like castle ramparts, stretched quite far ahead of us. The opposite bank was low and level. The Narmada, flowing close to this formidable shore, resembled Parvati sleeping in the lap of Shiva. I want to return to that place and see that beautiful scene once more in my life. We spent the night in nearby Chirpani and the following night in Naijhar. After buying rations in the Mehadwani market, we went to Thelaghat. It was a totally deserted place. There was only an old man farming there. He invited us to spend the night in his hut at the top of the hill. After our meal, we climbed with him up the pebbly, rocky path by torchlight. It was terribly steep. Encumbered by the packs on our back, we crawled up like lizards, inch by inch, and somehow managed to get there. There was nobody else in this desolate place. Absolute silence, total darkness. We were sleeping in a place like this for the first time. We could see the glow of a fire near the river. There was one behind us as well, in the distance. The fires probably belonged to the fishermen who had stayed by the river during the night. When we asked the old man, he replied, "The fire in front of us is the fishermen's, but the one behind us is not theirs." Then what is it? That is the territory of the Siddhas, the accomplished ones. Their fire burns of its own accord. Though the fire can be seen at night, there is not a single trace of it in the morning. I realized it was best to keep quiet in such a fearful place. When we got up and went on in the morning, our host accompanied us to show us the way. We came to the Siddha's land, where the fire had flickered the previous night. Now there was a heap of ash and burnt cow dung cakes. "What is this then?" I asked. He hesitated and then said, "Somebody had probably gathered cow dung for manure, but somebody else maliciously set fire to it. The lamp of love is hard to light. The fire of revenge flares easily." He went back to his hut from here. We set out for Dokarghat by a deserted path. not quite sure if we were on the right route. After quite some time, we met a man from Dokarghat who greeted us and said, "I am on my way to another village, but please go to my house. My son will provide you with everything you need." We carried on. Around noon, we saw 3 women collecting firewood along the path. I approached them to ask the way to Dokarghat, but when they saw me, they turned around and fled. The same thing had happened to us before. We would be tired, find somebody with the intention of asking the way to the next village, only to find that he had run off. Once in Dokarghat, we knocked at the door of the villager who had invited us. The woman who opened it was one of the 3 runaways. Luckily, before she could close the door out of fear, her eldest son appeared. I told him that we had met his father on the way, and he had invited us to visit their home. He seemed skeptical, so I showed him the sketch I had drawn of his father. Everyone immediately recognized him and happily gave us a room to stay in. The women explained that they had taken us for robbers earlier. In a few minutes, we had been elevated from robbers to honored guests. We went to bathe in the river. When we had walked along the opposite bank, we had strayed from the path, and I had narrowly escaped being attacked by bees. The whole incident came back to me. The people of the house told us to stay at their in-laws' house in Mandi that night. So that was where we stayed. Those in-laws said, "Our in-laws live in the next village. Please stay there." Marriages are generally arranged with people in nearby villages. We watched folk dancing until late at night in Mandi. There was masculine Saila dance. Men moved with the throbbing drumbeat, singing "Peacock, Pigeon, Parrot on the rooftop sing, Peacock, Pigeon, Parrot on the rooftop sing. Everybody sing aloud, Ram the King. Here's the magic bird with the golden ring." It was a very fast and exhausting dance. When the men were tired, the women began to sing and dance Rina. Then both the men and women together danced the Karma. The men's Saila, the women's Rina, and the Karma. We were lucky to have seen them all. The in-laws' village was nearby, so we did not stop there. We stayed the night in Gorakhpur. From there we reached Devgaon by a rough forest track. Here the Manod Bridge spans the Narmada. We slept on a fisherman's veranda in Devgaon. The first thing I saw as I rubbed the sleep from my eyes was the moon. The crescent-shaped moon was glimmering above a row of dark, dense trees curled up like an infant in its cradle. This was the 14th night of the waning moon, wearing out like a used piece of sandalwood. I gazed at this fragment of the moon for a long time. In a little while it was morning. Budhner Sangam, the confluence of the Budhner and the Narmada, was very near. The Budhner makes her way, leaping among rocks, springing swiftly towards the glittering Narmada. Coquettish as a deer leaping free. The name of such a youthful river, alas, is Budhner, meaning old. It should have been Yugner, the river of youth. The next day was Diwali. If we could reach Maharajpur the next evening, we would be able to get home at night in time for the festival. Our pace quickened of its own accord. We arrived in Ramnagar that evening and stayed the night in the temple. In the morning we went to see the palace, built on the bank of the Narmada by the Gond kings. The grandeur of this huge palace, now long abandoned, must have been worth seeing in the past. We found a road forward from Ramnagar. As we went along, an old man came walking towards us. We recognized him to be a pilgrim by his appearance. I asked him, "Why are you walking in the opposite direction?" He replied, "My pilgrimage is a Jilhari Parikrama, a U-shaped route, not a circle. We retrace our steps instead of crossing the sea. So, it is a double pilgrimage." I was amazed. What a difficult pilgrimage this old man of 75 had undertaken alone. I bowed my head in respect. In the wilderness of Sulpanjhari, Bhil bandits had robbed him. They had even taken his spectacles. He had explained to the Bhils that he had a cataract, that the glasses would be of no use to them, but the Bhils had not heeded him. He added, "I have a lot of trouble walking since then. I can't judge ups and downs properly. I have fallen several times." I asked, "Is there any way I can help you? I can give you some money." He replied, "I don't touch money." I was perplexed. "I can give you some grains." After a moment's hesitation, he asked, "What kind of dals do you have?" "Moong dal cooks quickly." We had some of that. I said so, and he responded, "Please give me some moong dal. I will be very happy. I am an old man and can't digest other kinds of dal. I get an upset stomach." As I gave him the dal, I repeated, "Take some money too. When this dal is used up, you will be able to get some more." He repeated the same words, "I don't touch money." I had set out on my pilgrimage for a few days with money, provisions, and a companion like Yadavendra. This old man was traveling alone and destitute. Who knows when he will reach his home, if at all. And yet, he continued on his pilgrimage cheerfully. This was pure faith. This was total dedication. A person like that, traveling alone, is not alone. Lord Krishna silently takes the reins of his chariot in his hands. Mandla came into sight. Crossing the wide sandy bed of the Banjar tributary, we arrived in Maharajpur. This part of the journey ended here. We took a bus from Mandla to Jabalpur, arriving home on Diwali evening. Crowds, noise, smoke, dirt, hustle and bustle. We had come from an abode of peace to the battlefield of the city. Later in the evening, when people were praying to Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, the quiet voice of the old man, perceiving his lonely path, echoed in my heart, "I don't touch money."